Welcome to a Legendarium special about Hammurabi's Code, how to govern an ancient empire. In this episode, we will talk about how Hammurabi's Code affected many aspects of life in ancient Babylonia and what it tells us about life almost 4,000 years ago. Hammurabi became the sixth king in the Babylonian dynasty, which ruled central Mesopotamia in present-day Iraq from 1894 to 1595 BC. King Hammurabi himself ruled from 1792 to 1750 BC, a time remembered today as Babylonia's Golden Age. His family descended from the Amorites, a semi-nomadic tribe in western Syria which conquered many Mesopotamian cities during the Sumerian collapse of 2000 BC. Hammurabi's name reflected a mix of cultures. Hammu meant family in Amorite, combined with Rapi meaning great in Akkadian, the language of Babylonia's ruling class. When Hammurabi followed his father Sin-Muballit to the throne in 1792 BC, he had already handled a number of official duties in governing the realm. Upon taking the throne, he won his people's love by issuing a proclamation that forgave debts and then won his subjects' admiration by renovating temples throughout his realm. During his reign, Hammurabi faced a dangerous rival to the south named Rim-Sin of Larsa. Yet in the 30th year of his reign, having outlived Rim-Sin, Hammurabi began to expand his kingdom across the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. He overthrew the kingdoms of Assyria, Larsa, Ashuna, and Mari, until all Mesopotamia came under his rule. Hammurabi combined his military and political savvy with large-scale construction. Not only did he expand irrigation canals, which made the deserts bloom, he also ordered the construction of fortifications and temples celebrating Babylon's patron deity, Marduk. The Babylon of Hammurabi's era is now buried below the local groundwater. However, clay tablets discovered at other sites reveal glimpses of the king's character. One letter records his complaint of being forced to provide dinner attire for ambassadors from Mari just because he did the same for some other delegates. Hammurabi wrote, "Do you imagine you can control my palace in the matter of formal wear?" While best known in his day for construction projects and vast conquests, Hammurabi today is remembered as a lawgiver. Since he governed a vast realm that included many small kingdoms, Hammurabi sought a means to unite them and believed a single law code for all nations would do the job nicely. The Code of Hammurabi is often cited as the oldest written law code on record, yet at least two other codes of conduct from Southwest Asia came before it. The earliest code by the Sumerian ruler Ur-Nammu dates to more than 300 years before Hammurabi's time, and the Sumerian code of Lipit Ishtar appeared 2 centuries before Hammurabi came to the throne. So Hammurabi's code almost certainly drew inspiration from these earlier models. When Hammurabi ordered the writing of the law code which would bear his name, his craftsmen carved a black finger-shaped stone stele containing the code from a single 4-ton slab of diorite, a durable stone but one which made for difficult carving. At its top is a 2.5-foot relief of a standing Hammurabi receiving the law, symbolized by a measuring rod and tape, from the seated Shamash, the Babylonian god of justice. Upon the monument, Hammurabi declared that he wrote the code to prevent the strong from oppressing the weak and to see that justice is done to widows and orphans. Thus, there is little doubt that Hammurabi intended his code to double as royal propaganda. Indeed, the rest of the 5'7" monument is covered with columns of chiseled cuneiform script. This text, compiled at the end of Hammurabi's reign, is a collection of legal precedents set in between prose that celebrates Hammurabi's supposedly just and pious rule. We can tell that modesty was not one of Hammurabi's virtues. Unsurprisingly, the text would be copied and spread throughout the Babylonian Empire to showcase royal power and justice to everybody. Hammurabi's code is based on the principle of lex talionis, or the laws of retribution, sometimes known as an eye for an eye. Thus, the Code of Hammurabi includes many harsh and even bizarre punishments. These sometimes demand the removal of the guilty party's tongue, hands, breasts, eyes, or ears. Under this system, if a man broke the bone of a peer, his own bone would be broken in return. Capital crimes carried their own unique and grisly death penalties. If the authorities, for example, found a son and mother committing incest, they burned them to death. If a pair of scheming lovers conspired to murder their spouses, both would suffer a slow and painful public death upon a sharp impaling rod. Should a son strike his father, the code demanded that the boy's hands be sawed off. And in cases of witchcraft, the accused had to leap into the river. If he drowned, the river gods judged him too dangerous to live. However, if the accused made it back to shore, his accuser would be put to death as a perjurer. The 282 edicts are written in an if-then form. For example, if a man steals an ox, then he must pay back 3 times its value. Edicts range from family law to professional contracts and administrative law, often outlining different standards of justice for the 3 classes of Babylonian society: landowners, freedmen, and slaves. Hammurabi's Babylonia was home to many slaves because of the wars he fought, which brought the whole of Mesopotamia under his rule. And should a man murder a pregnant slave woman, then he would pay a fine to the woman's owner. If he did the same to a free woman, however, his daughter would be put to death. The code also listed different punishments for men and women for adultery. Men could have extramarital relationships with maidservants and slaves, but philandering women would be bound and tossed into the Euphrates along with their lovers. Despite the harshness of the punishments, Hammurabi's code proved surprisingly progressive on subjects like divorce, property rights, and the prohibition of incest. Most radical of all, the code mandated an ancient form of minimum wage. Several edicts in the code referenced specific occupations and dictated how much workers must be paid. Field laborers and herdsmen received a guarantee of 8 gur of corn per year, while ox drivers and sailors received 6 gur. A doctor's fee for curing a severe wound would be 10 silver shekels for a gentleman, 5 for a freedman, and 2 shekels for a slave. Penalties for malpractice followed the same scheme. A doctor who killed a rich patient would have his hands sawed off, while he would only pay compensation to the owner if a slave died under his care. While notorious for its catalogue of barbaric punishments, Hammurabi's code also set precedents that have survived to this day. The compendium is among the first legal documents to put forth a doctrine of innocent until proven guilty, placing the burden of proof on the accuser in sometimes extreme fashion. It read, "If anyone bring an accusation of any crime before the elders and does not prove what he is charged, he shall, if it be a capital offense charged, be put to death." Hammurabi's empire went into decline after his death in 1750 BC before a Hittite army sacked Babylon and claimed its riches in 1595 BC. Nevertheless, Hammurabi's code proved so influential that it survived as a legal guide in Southwest Asia for centuries, even as empires rose and fell. Copying the code became a popular assignment for scribes in training for 1,000 years, ensuring it would be written upon the minds of the ruling class for generations. Since the code's discovery in 1901 by Jacques de Morgan, a French mining engineer, the code is cited as one of the first law codes in history, a contemporary of the Hebrew Old Testament. Today, the U.S. Supreme Court building features Hammurabi among the marble carvings of historic lawgivers along its south wall. That wraps things up for this episode of The Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.